Well, you asked for it.
Not only did I get good reception from my first commercials video, the feedback from the second was even better. So, why not give the people what they want? You know the drill. Commercials are everywhere, and they've got something to sell you whether you want it or not. Once again, I'm going to show off a few that I felt like sharing. Those to praise, those to shame, and those I don't know what to think about. So let's just get this over with.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Many companies like to compare themselves to the competition, but to me, it can come off as petty at times. There are times where a commercial might be obviously hyping up whatever product they're trying to advertise, but they also take shots at the competition, which is to be expected, but am I the only one that then just wants to support the competition? Examples that come to mind are the Mac vs. PC ads where Mac is a cool guy and PC is some uptight nerd in a suit. Sega dunking on Nintendo back in the 90s with blast processing and attitude. Hell, I've always preferred Pepsi over Coca-Cola, but seeing some Pepsi ads dissing the rival in red, I'm almost compelled to buy some Coke.
Well, here's a commercial that just made me want to support the competition.
Alltel Wireless ran a series of commercials in which employees of competitors like Verizon, AT&T, and others were often jealous of how Alltel representative Chad was able to draw new customers so easily. Yes, his name was Chad. Alltel's Chad was a good-looking and well-kept blonde guy, while the other providers were depicted as stereotypical nerds, often shown to live in their mother's basements, play video games, and Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they predicted the incels versus Chads of the modern-day internet.
This My Circle from Alltel Wireless is killing us.
You could choose like 10 people and all calls to them are free no matter what network they're on.
Like anyone could even have 10 friends.
Maybe I'm looking into it a bit much, but I always felt bad for the other guys, even as a kid when these aired. Yeah, they're kind of being dicks, but there's also the fact that it does affect their jobs. If management finds out they keep losing more potential customers, it would be logical it could cost them their jobs.
We have a new unlimited plan.
Can we all share it?
No, you each have to get your own.
Sounds expensive.
Oh, extremely.
At least Chad himself isn't some stereotypical dick like how the others are shown as nerds, though I gotta question why he puts up with their antics so much. At least he's usually nice to them. Other people abandon them in the middle of nowhere, sick their dogs on them, attempt to kill them, or just kill them outright.
My bad.
I'm sorry, but these guys are just trying to do and even save their jobs. But you're supposed to hate them? Well, I don't. I want to root for them. It's funny that the slogan for Alltel was "Come and get your love" and featured all the heart imagery of being kind. But not if you're some basement-dwelling geeks, I guess.
Maybe it's some reverse psychology thing. This thing good, this thing bad, and I just feel like being a contrarian?
Also because in the modern day, nerds and geeks are more culturally accepted, sometimes even catered to. Or maybe it's a root for the underdog situation.
Chance! Can you believe these guys?
Besides, Alltel was eventually bought out by Verizon years later, so I guess the wireless boys got the last laugh after all. Karma, perhaps? Either way, nowadays I guess you won't be able to come and get your love anymore.
Switch today risk-free.
Let's go back to the early 90s and talk about the Simpsons Butterfinger commercials.
Look at this thing, Bloodbart, and tell me what you see.
A Butterfinger.
And this one?
Another Butterfinger.
I can't really give much of an intro. Most people already know them. They were incredibly prominent when Simpson Mania was in full swing, and Bart Simpson was basically the mascot for the candy.
You won't mind if I take a bite of his crispity, crunchity peanut.
Here's an interesting bit of trivia, too. When these commercials came out, or made at least, they were so early in Simpsons history that some of the characters featured weren't even named yet. Hey look, Nelson. Nope, that's just some random bully.
How much money you got, Simpson? $1.03, Mr. Bully, sir.
Hell, the Butterfinger ads were the first appearance of Milhouse.
I don't have the Butterfinger group.
Looks like you could die of malnutrition, dude.
These commercials were even the origin of the slogan, "Nobody better lay a finger on my Butterfinger."
But nobody better lay a finger on my Butterfinger.
But I've always wondered, why are these two put together anyway? Sponsors are always a thing in media, but I could never quite put together the connection between Butterfinger and The Simpsons. Specifically Bart. Why Bart in particular? The Simpsons, even in its early days, had a large cast of characters. Why not use Homer more? He's a much more funny and recognizable character in my opinion.
I mean, there's gotta be some reason they link these two together. Oh my god.
Nobody better lay a finger on my Butterfinger.
I think it's safe to say that Apple is a company that a lot of people will have different opinions on. Ethically, business-wise, or even the quality and features of their products. But that's not what I'm here for today. I'm talking about commercials. And I'll make mention of some Apple ads in general, but there's one in particular I want to bring up. Anyways, is it just me, but Apple ads always come off as pretentious. They have a sort of snooty vibe to them. Something like, we're Apple, so we're just better. And to me, that just makes it seem egotistical. Even the Think Different ad showing various cultural and historical figures just makes it seem like they're trying to build themselves up as big and important, or that these people are somehow connected with Apple in any way.
While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius.
Yeah, I'm sure Thomas Edison loved using his iMac to make memes in the early internet days. But this one commercial that I want to talk about always drove me nuts. And I'm sure it drove many others mad with one simple line. In this iPad commercial, we see a weird hipster kid as they run around a city on their own. I question who lets their kid run around a major city unsupervised, but oh well. The kid just goes around doing whatever random thing the director thought looked cool. We get a few shots of the iPad to remind you it's an iPad commercial, and kid just uses it for different things as most of the focus is on them rather than the product. Kid returns home, sits in the backyard when their neighbor approaches and asks,
"What you doing on your computer?"
What's a computer?
You all heard that, right?
What's a computer?
Apple made a commercial saying, "What's a computer?"
What's a computer?
You know, Apple computers.
What's a computer?
Aren't tablets computers? Even if you want to say, oh, tablets aren't really computers, they still run and work the same, but sure, let's ignore that. The mere idea of Apple, who started making computers, asks, what's a computer? Even the kid. Who would be that dumb to ask what's a computer? What kid doesn't know what a computer is? Hell, I'm sure your iPad has Safari, just look it up. And again, Apple computers asking that question. I can't get over how mind-numbing that is. Seems like even they forgot they make more than the iPhone. I'm gonna move on, because I'm just gonna start sounding like a broken record.
What's a computer?
That thing I'm spraying with the hose right now? That's a computer.
How often do you remember a product just because it had a catchy jingle in its commercials? I'm sure there are plenty, but one that comes to mind when writing for this video was the Want a Fanta commercials. Starting in 2002, Coca-Cola would run an ad for their fruit-flavored soda brand, Fanta, with a musical girl group called the Fantanas. People suffer on a hot day, the Fantanas show up, sing, dance, and refresh people. They were really going for the musical group angle, so they even made this behind-the-music-esque documentary for them as well.
I mean, the first time I saw them, I was like, whoa.
I knew they were going to be huge.
You just want to, I don't know, drink their sweat. I don't know. That's how I felt.
They pretty much had what you needed to grab people's attention. The dancing, fast-paced and energetic feel, hot ladies, and of course, a very simple but easy to get stuck in your head song. No, there were always a few things that always seemed weird to me. Like, how do the Fantanas just show up whenever it's convenient to give people some soda? Some of them, yeah, they're in a broken down car, probably far from home or busy with yard work. But some of them you could easily already get something to drink. Like, these guys are already at home. You don't have anything in the fridge? It's also weird how some of these people just accept the random song and dance routine that appears before them. I'd be confused as hell. They also jump and pull people out of their cars, even break into people's homes. Also, you better not want water or any other drink, because all you're getting is Fanta. Here's the thing, too. The Fantanas are some musical group, but they must be a one-hit wonder, because the only thing they ever sing is Want a Fanta. Just riding on the success of that one song for as long as you can, huh? Don't worry. The worst that can happen is you get a Kids Bop cover.
Is there no place safe from their bubbly bedlam?
And one last thing I noticed. Even though the Fantanas and Jingle are remembered after all this time, they didn't actually use them that much. They had one commercial in 2002, and that was it. A couple years later, one commercial, and gone again. The cycle repeats. The Fantanas themselves were never even the same. In each commercial, they were always different actresses. I'm no expert on music groups and all, but don't bands usually change like 1 or 2 members over time? Not replace everyone all at once. Yeah, I'm just being nitpicky at this point. Anyways, the Fantanas, despite not being used that often, remain memorable with a flashy, colorful, and fun mood to them. Even if it was mostly carried by their looks in the jingle. Mostly the jingle.
Don't you wanna?
I'm sure plenty of people remember the Axe commercials. They targeted younger men looking to attract women with the Axe effect. Obviously over the top, and often going from silly to more explicit with the whole sex sells angle. Around the same time, however, another company saw what Axe was doing and thought, we can do that, but hornier. And they leaned arguably harder than Axe ever did. In 2005, Procter & Gamble launched Tag body spray, aimed at a similar market of young men looking to attract women, even down to the packaging looking almost identical to Axe. But the commercials are what they were really leaning into. While Axe commercials varied in how much sex was used to sell, Tag was way more in your face.
I got nothing.
Don't worry about it.
Cindy, I'm home.
Dad!
Warning, the makers of Tag Wildcard remind you that if you mess with the King's Queens, you better watch your ace, Jack.
Guy wears the body spray and suddenly hot women are drawn to and very aggressively pursue the men, sometimes being downright assault.
Be alert to any changes in his appearance, scrapes, unexplained crushing injuries.
Yeah, Axe had these in commercials too, but they weren't as direct as Tag was. Even the names of scents were alluding to sex. The packaging even featuring silhouettes of women in suggestive poses. Even the commercials ended with a woman moaning.
Introducing Tag body spray for guys.
They did not give a single shit. I do want to question how selective the situations are. Guy in the pharmacy? Sure. There just happens to be attractive women nearby. The wrestling one, though? How the hell did the wrestler even pick up on the set from not only a good distance away, but over the smell of hundreds of other people in attendance? If anything, you'd smell your own or your opponent's sweat. Also, why didn't the guy's girlfriend go all aggressive on him?
Warning, the makers of Tag body spray encourage you to exercise discretion when applying said spray in public forums. Possible side effects include sunset flips, reverse power bombs, and back suplexes into full Nelson slams.
You think he could sue if the wrestler broke anything when she did that? Maybe, but you know for sure getting pounced on by a strong lady is a fantasy for some guy.
My time is now.
In a similar vein, how'd this woman not get affected in any way until he walks right past her? He's standing next to her for a good chunk of time. Also, the mom just suddenly comes onto her daughter's boyfriend with no worry? How old is he? You better hope he's 18, lady.
This is Drake.
Call me Bonnie. Oops.
Fun fact, this is actress Rebecca Stab, who played Sue Storm in the 90s Fantastic Four movie. There isn't much else I can say. These ads were way more on the nose than Axe ever was. Appropriate, because it deals with scent. In the end, Axe went out because it's still around and people arguably remember its commercials more than Tag's. Maybe Tag just tried too hard. Well, hard in more ways than one.
New Tag body shots can be deployed wherever, whenever. Consider yourself warned.
I don't know if anyone else is like this, but sometimes there are commercials that just infuriate me no matter what. And one of the companies that makes those commercials is Taco Bell. It's to be expected that a fast food restaurant whose most appetizing items are the napkins wouldn't have the most appealing advertisements either. As previously mentioned, I can't exactly pinpoint the exact cause of my disdain, but I can sure try. The easier reason could be I just don't like the product. And why would I? It smells and looks like dog shit, and I don't want to know if it tastes like it too. Don't question how I know that. But I'm not here to talk about the product, I'm talking about the commercials. Another reason could be like the previously mentioned Alltel commercials. They act and treat competition as lame, boring, and sometimes outright villainous. There are multiple ads where they depict anyone who likes burgers as lifeless and authoritarian clowns, in a vein similar to George Orwell's 1984. Let's go! Let's go! Or some company trying to take down the beloved tacos through censorship and mafia-style crime.
Rebellion is forming.
Is there anything that tastes better than this?
'Cause yeah, Taco Bell isn't some big company that only wants to sell you cheap processed slop. We're the good guys. Another reason could be the way they style the commercials. Maybe it's trying to be tongue-in-cheek, but I can't really read into it that way. They try to make it seem like they're fancy, high class, or some sort of game changer. It could be true if there weren't already many other fast food chains that sell similar and arguably better food than Taco Bell does. But they'd rather shit on burger places rather than compare themselves to tacos. People in the commercials are also infuriating. Like this guy who'd rather give up a valuable family heirloom for cheap food.
This silver dollar has been in our family for generations. I had it with me the night I won the heart of your grandmother. I want you to... Never mind.
These obnoxious astrology women that talk about nothing but burritos and zodiacs.
Cutting your burrito? You're such a Virgo.
And you have serious Libra vibes. You got 2 different burritos because you couldn't decide.
It is not an easy decision.
That's exactly what a Libra would say.
Seems cultish with some people too. Immediately leaving to buy tacos once they hear anything sounding like a bell. There's also this woman who's jealous of another mom who got Taco Bell breakfast, and yet she can't? I don't get it. What's she angry about?
You look like you belong in a dirty gas station. They all laughed at you.
Don't laugh at me!
But maybe my biggest gripe, they really want to call this shit Mexican food, but can't for obvious reasons. So they dance around it with phrases like, made with Mexican spices, or taglines like, head for the border. Even when they talk about the founder of the company, Glenn Bell, they show these really saturated photos of him that make his skin appear darker, even though he's a white guy. They even made a short animation where he has dark skin and lives in a cartoonish interpretation of Mexico.
There once was a chef named Glenn who dreamed of making tacos for the entire world.
I guess they just couldn't cope with the fact that they were pushed out of the Mexican market. Twice. I don't know. They could all be the reason they piss me off. And I should probably stop because I'm just gonna get angrier. All I can say is, with an advance sorry, nunca quiero Taco Bell. Also, keep anything Taco Bell related far away from Gravity Falls. Before I continue, yes, I know the Nostalgia Critic already talked about the Red Bull commercials. Yes, he already said almost everything there is to say about them.
But just like the critic, there's one commercial in particular I want to talk about.
It takes place at a nude beach.
Already pushing things.
The man arrives and asks a woman if it's okay for him to sit there. She's alright with it, and for some reason attracted to his scrawny ass.
Oh, yes, please.
She then offers him a Red Bull, undoubtedly warm because it's been sitting in her purse all day. Guy drinks, and then...
Lucky me.
So Red Bull not only gives you wings, it gives you wood too.
I don't know, is this just some sex sells thing I'm not getting?
Oh, I forgot. Red Bull does give you wings.
All 2000s kids should definitely remember not only the Bionicle toys, but the commercials too.
Bionicle. Each set sold separately.
In 2001, LEGO was looking for a way to combine their usual building toys with action figures. And the result of that was Bionicle, a sort of action-adventure series that combined fantasy and some science fiction.
6 mighty Toa must rise against evil. To succeed, they must join forces and find the Kanoi masks of power.
I'm mostly gonna stick to the commercials, cause if I went into the story, I'd be here all day. Each commercial would of course show off the toys and what features they have, but they'd also show 3D animations that look like it could have been from a movie. And yeah, they did make Bionicle movies, but it always bothered me how they never looked like the toys. The commercials not only had those cool visuals and animations to them, but they also had great sound to them. Earlier ones having this strange but hypnotizing sort of synth choir and droning sounds to them.
From great victories, mighty heroes arise. The Toa had repelled the Borok swarms and were forever transformed.
Most commercials also had this narrator who added to the cool factor and gave what story you could in a commercial.
Dare you enter the deep? Dare you face the creeps? Bionicle presents 6 new Baraki creatures whose like you've never seen.
Speaking of sound, music was a big part of later commercials. They would have tie-ins with some rock bands to have their music used in commercials, from the All-American Rejects, Daughtry, and Cryoshell. I can't play most of the music unless altered to avoid copyright issues, but let's just say most of them got myself and many other kids screaming at their parents, "I want it!" One song in particular stood out, though. The Paraka rap.
The trigger, tracer, drifter, the snake, the beast, the bully, all that makes Paraka. Paraka, from Bionicle.
It's weird. The music and atmosphere of most commercials were rock, electronic, and even orchestral. But then there's the Paraka one, where it's just yo-yo and shit. It was just such a cool style to it all. The characters, they're clearly machines, but they live on a tropical and tribal island, Matanui, with heavy Maori influence. But then there was the past, where they lived in an advanced city taken over by spiders. And then they're gladiators on a different planet, diving into the dark depths of the ocean, attempting to awaken a god. Now I'm just getting into the story. Sorry. Either way, Bionicle was a favorite for me, and many others as a kid. Its influence clearly stuck, because after a decade and a half after the line was discontinued, it's still remembered fondly.
Bionicle presents 6 new and Nike heroes.
Getting ringtones for phones nowadays is stupidly easy. Just install an app or download an MP3 to your phone, set whatever you want as the ringtone, and boom. But in the 2000s, it wasn't that easy. I don't know all the technical ins and outs, but it seemed like most of the time you'd have different services you text and eventually pay to get the ringtones said services provide. Usually songs or sound clips. The company that most people remember doing so was Jamster.
Get wonky on your phone. All you have to do is send fun to 99-711. Wonky is so hilarious.
Seems simple enough. See a ringtone you like, just text the needed word or phrase to the number displayed on screen, and you'd get said ringtone and bill for it over time. And about the billing, there's a whole story about people were scammed out of money because of the service, but I'm not talking about that. I'm sticking to the commercials.
Get Beyonce's hot new real tones now in the monthly value plan.
There was obviously whatever music was popular at the time, but most recognizable of the Jamster commercials were always these animated characters that would sing these earworm songs. Most of them were always animals, from a bunny, a gopher, a mammoth, and even an emo. These were also where some infamous characters might have gotten early publicity from. Most notably Crazy Frog and Gummy Bear. I'm not going to dwell on them too much either. I think most people have already said all that can be said about them, especially with Crazy Frog in Europe.
Go crazy and get the Crazy Frog as a ringtone on your mobile now.
Also, he had a penis. There were also other ringtones offered that weren't even songs. Some were just random sound bites, usually from popular TV shows like Family Guy.
Get the Family Guy theme song as your new ringtone. All you have to do is text Peter1 to 75555.
Because, you know, hearing giggity giggity over and over every time you get a phone call wouldn't get annoying. They weren't just ringtones either. They also had these weird games or tools you could text and get that were totally legitimate, like an X-ray scanner or relationship analyzer. Weird.
Do you want to know when you're gonna die? Just text Fright1 to 75555 and this fun application will let you know when your last day on Earth will be.
But phones evolved over time, and the briefly mentioned scams Jamster was involved with, the company and its services eventually were lost to time. And now all we have left are these commercials. definitely relics from a different age.
If you want to hear some guy get a concussion on your phone, text SOUP to 55777. Again, that's SOUP to 55777.
These are ones I want to talk about very briefly. In the 2010s, York Peppermint Patty had a series of commercials for a few years where they made eating the candy seem like an experience.
The chill of peppermint. The rich, dark chocolate.
Just look how these were filmed. All the close-ups feel super intimate and focus on things like the eyes, mouth, and tongue, or a person's skin getting goosebumps from the mint.
The rich, dark chocolate.
I think this woman might have came with a look like that. I mostly want to give credit to these commercials because they are pretty well made. Again, they look and are shot very nicely in my eyes. Some commercials have quick jump cuts to emphasize what the feeling of eating a York could give.
Breathtaking peppermint.
Kinda makes me want one too, until I remember mint makes me gag. I also want to note the sound design as well. Much like the visuals, I'd say it's well done. But I wonder if it might have been some people's introduction to ASMR. A lot of the sounds almost seem like they're supposed to be soft and quiet, like a whisper in your ear. For some, it's probably relaxing and exciting. For others, it's probably unnerving. I honestly think it matches the visuals, so it's a good fit. Shots are close and intimate feeling, so it makes sense the sound would be too. I do want to know, though, why is it all women in the commercials? Are Yorks just really popular among women? Is it just an excuse to use attractive women in the commercials? Or, since I mentioned ASMR earlier, maybe it's somebody's bizarre fetish they managed to get on TV. Wouldn't be the first time that happened. There isn't much else I can say. These commercials are simple, but for what they tried to do, I'd say they definitely gave the viewers a sensation.
York Peppermint Patty. Get the sensation.
I've noticed that I haven't covered any PSAs in my last two videos. Mostly because there aren't any that come to mind that I saw in childhood or even recently. There are some infamous or well-known ones, but I think most people have already said what you can say about them. So I decided to look up some PSAs online and see if anything interesting caught my eye. Not just American, but all over the globe. And I eventually found some from Latvia that are worth talking about. Around the 2000s, a series of railway safety PSAs were produced and featured characters from a stop-motion show called Avarius Brigade, or Trouble Brigade. Some people act ignorant and foolish around railroads, the Trouble Brigade often attempting to stop and protect the people from harm. Sometimes they work, and other times they need to learn a lesson.
Number please.
I'd say they do a good job of explaining what not to do in a comedic and entertaining way, especially since there's little dialogue, meaning there isn't much of a language barrier. The message gets across nice and clear. They all manage to be memorable, even if some of them are just downright weird. Like this one of people just pulling apart and stealing parts of a train. I don't even know what's supposed to be going on there. Or this guy who just thinks handing away money will fix all his problems. Yeah, sorry buddy, the train ain't taking bribes. There's one of the PSAs in particular I want to focus on. The reason why? It just makes me laugh due to how silly it is. Starts with some kids messing around on train tracks, seeing things get crushed by a train. Starts with a coin, moves onto a rock, but when they put a branch on the rails, the train doesn't just derail, it also seems to follow them too. All this while ridiculous music seems to be emitting from the train itself. The train even manages to follow them into a building and up a flight of stairs. The chase continues until the kids are cornered, and then... I love this. It's bonkers. The way the train follows the kids, the goofy music, the lifeless stare of the train's driver, and just how bluntly he asks the question at the end. I just wanted to show you fun PSAs from another country. Hope you got as much entertainment from them as I did. And remember, be safe around trains. A message from Metro. I've never covered commercials for women's hair products before. Shocking, I know. But there are some commercials that I want to cover as a nice way to end the video. In the 2000s, Aussie Hair Products released a series of commercials featuring a purple kangaroo mascot. Her name is apparently Jill, by the way, though she's never referred to as such by anyone in the commercials.
Not one to be outshined?
Ads would follow Jill going about her day, but through antics and needing to sell a product, bottles of Aussie pop out of her pouch and they end up in the hands of different women dealing with bad hair days. They apply products off screen and boom, professionally styled hair in just a few seconds. And from the looks of it, it must come with makeup too, because most of these women weren't wearing any to begin with. Yet the hair isn't enough to show off for this woman, so she decides to unbutton her shirt and show off a bit of chest too.
Look at my hair! Look at my hair! Here's my chest. Does it help you see my hair?
And do these women even need the product? Some of them look fine already.
Aussie is now guaranteed to give you naturally radiant hair after one use.
Oh, you can keep those. I'm moving on.
Of course, the main thing of note in these commercials is Jill, the kangaroo herself. A large puppet that looks like it took multiple people to operate. Looks a little awkward at times, but other times it can come off as pretty expressive and lively. The design is also pretty cute in my opinion. Feels like she could have had official plush toys made.
Sun get in your eyes?
Another thing to bring up in these commercials, it follows a similar pattern to Lucky Charms. Mascot character has product. People take product from mascot. Mascot annoyed.
For a quick fix, Aussie's got just the ticket. Add some root to your do.
And just like Lucky Charms, it makes me feel bad for the mascot. Those are hers. You bitches just mugged her.
Lab products you'd like to declare?
She seems to get robbed often too, because one ad even has her identifying the suspect in a police lineup.
Aussie hair always stands out.
Though, if you know animals at all, these kind of take on an unsettling tone. Jill keeps the Aussie products in her pouch, and for kangaroos, that's usually where the females keep their young, which seems to imply the hair products are her children? No, that can't be. If she had kids, we would have seen them. Are there any other kangaroos in the commercials? Oh, a boy kangaroo. You can tell he's a boy because he doesn't have eyelashes. So what's he gonna do? Oh my god. Jill actually gives birth to the Aussie products. Those are actually her babies. And these women take them and use them to improve their own appearance like tools.
That's disgusting and wrong! Who would use children, newborns at that, to make a cosmetic product? Wait a minute.
Well, the commercials lasted a couple of years, but eventually they came to a stop. And even though the kangaroo was used in the occasional promotional material, eventually she was phased out as well, and Aussie moved on to new ways of pushing the brand. A bit sad, but at least we got to see a fun character for as long as we did.
Don't get dehydrated. Don't miss the 4 new collections from Aussie. Add some root to your do.
Seems we've reached the end once more. I'm glad people responded so positively to my previous 2 videos, and I hope number 3 was able to deliver as well. I might take a break after this one, but maybe I could revisit some more commercials in the future.
Hope the commercials I showed were interesting, and I hope I was able to entertain people once more. Thanks for watching.